Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to BL Virtual 2024. Remember, that's our hashtag. I just want to take a second to say thank you again to our sponsors, Geotab, Genetech, and Axon. And don't forget to check out their sponsor spotlights at blueline.ca. Now, jumping right into our second session of the day, let's invite our next presenters to the virtual stage. Staff Sergeants Jeremy Ashley and Kyle King of the Belleville Police Service. Now, we're going to step into the future of police documentation with our session on transitioning from paper to electronic notes. What are the benefits of going digital? What challenges come along with this shift? We're going to hear from Jeremy and Kyle on the practicalities of the transition. And as in our morning discussion, there will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, but you can pop in your questions at any time. Before we jump in, I'm just going to give a brief intro for our speakers. Staff Sergeant Ashley became an officer with the Belleville Police Service in 2009, following a decade-long career in photojournalism. He has worked in a number of roles in the police service, from frontline patrol and the detective's office to forensics. Currently, he is the staff sergeant in charge of the operations division for the Belleville Police Service, managing patrol and several specialty response units in the police service. Staff Sergeant King started with the Belleville Police Service in 2007. Most of his career has been in patrol as an officer and as a supervisor. He is also in charge of the Emergency Response Unit, a team that he has been part of since 2010. He is currently assigned to policy and special projects. Now I'm going to hand it over to Jeremy and Kyle.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that introduction. I know Kyle does as well. So we're going to jump right into it. And I got a presentation to run. So here we go. Let me just see if I can make sure I can share this. Here, so in Belleville, so where are we? We are in Eastern Ontario. We're a service of about 100 officers, 60 to 70 civilians, policing a population of about 60,000, 50 to 60,000, give or take. And we've been exploring e-notes for a while. So the last 18 months really has been a big push for us. What we ended up doing was we looked at a number of different products out in the market. And we really pushed through with an application that we started developing with Axon. So we have a pilot team and a trial group that we've expanded over the last, I'd say, 12 months. Kyle's role in this is he's really head of that group and making sure that we have all of our checks and balances in place. But we'll take you through kind of the story. We have a lot of information to cover. We have a little bit of time to do it. So because I want to make sure that we leave some time at the end for questions and whatnot. So the challenge is, if you're in policing anywhere in the province, country, or another country, notes are an issue when it comes to the digital age. Transitioning handwritten notes into something that is fluid, easier to access by other entities or offices or units is it's quite a difficult task to do. So there are a number of different things that we were facing and we recognized as we started this process. And really it comes down to sharing and securing notebooks. It's problematic when they're that physical piece of notepad paper. The benefits that we've seen as an agency with moving to a digital format are very obvious. Improved agency efficiency, storage, and sharing is a big component to that. We're going to talk about kind of what those look like in our service and some of the benefits and I guess benefits that we hadn't recognized before starting this project that we've seen now, with it coming close to fruition as rolling out to our frontline staff. Our timeline for our project is December, January, rolling it out to our entire all of our officers in our service. Like anything digital, there are so many benefits to having something digitized, right? Whether it's the digital capture within notes, there are configurable fields and searchability, sharing, and accessibility. And I know that I'm not speaking specifically about our product that we're developing. This is true of many other platforms that are out there. We found that this product development cycle for us with Axon fits within the direction of our service and where we're going with this group. I can speak about some of the challenges that we faced, and I'm sure Kyle can as well. Anytime that you change something that's been in existence for 100 years, you're going to face some physical and mental challenges, I think, with this product. And a lot of those challenges actually we really didn't think of course, you're thinking of officer safety when you're taking a note with a pen and paper is a lot different than when you have your head down typing with your thumbs into a keyboard. Yes, there is voice dictation, which is really, really good. But when you're at the side of a road speaking with someone and you're trying to capture that information, there is a challenge there because there's a change not only in how you're capturing it, but also the officer mentality for safety. And I know that one of the drawbacks for us, and it's more anecdotal than it is data driven, is officers are finding that sometimes when they're taking their notes or they're dictating their notes in public, the visual of an officer with a phone in their hand looking down, they really are key to the fact that many in the public will probably think that they're flipping through Instagram instead of actually doing something work related. So there's that kind of a cultural aspect to it that we didn't think of when we were rolling this out. Note-taking workflow and RMS integration, depending on what records management system you have. A lot of what we're doing now with the eNotes platform, because we're a niche optic system here, is that we are it's export to share and then attached to our niche RMX system as an external document. So it's not necessarily integrated that well into our platforms. So that is a challenge. Despite all that, the benefits of it far outweigh some of these challenges. And we can speak of a couple of different examples and scenarios of times when really an electronic note, it's just really it's risen to the top of efficiency and compelling detail, really. Another challenge is Axon is an American company. So in Canada, as you probably all know, there was an adaptation of what notes are in Canada, how they're utilized, also how a lot of the language surrounding policing and what we do, and some of the cautions or warnings or those legislative requirements that we have, how that integrates into that notes product as well. So I think those have been some of the challenges. We've overcome a lot of them. Some of them will be ongoing, and it's not so much a problem to be solved, but more of a strain to be managed. What I'll do now is just walk you through, and Kyle, please feel free to jump in anywhere. But I'll walk you through kind of what the product looks like.
Sorry, Jeremy, question popped up there about the officer safety considerations. For us, it's essentially the same as holding a notebook when you're on a call. Just being mindful that your phone's in your hand and your head's going to be down, same as writing any notes, and just officers being mindful of when they're taking notes and not taking notes, and head down in the phone is really the major consideration. But it's not a lot different than actually having a physical notebook and pen in hand doing the same thing on an actual call for service.
That's very true. It's just being mindful, and we are where we're at with the pilot is we have and we can talk about how to roll this, or how we've rolled this out in our service, in our plans for training in the future as we roll it out to the entire service. I think we've done a really good job of that because we want to make sure that this is a new technology and a new workflow for a lot of officers, whether you're 2 years on or whether you're 30 years on. And we want to make sure that everyone's on the same page, so to speak, and everyone's training is up to the same standard, because it can be a challenge when you roll out technology that impact people like this. If it's not done correctly, it can be a real detriment to the service as a whole, right? And how officers embrace and use this product, because The ones that have been using it are really harnessing, I think, all of the advantages of this product to make sure that it's on the back end or on the end game where we have deliverables to court, that the product that they're providing is actually higher quality than what we would get out of a written notebook. These are just some screenshots of what this particular product looks like. It's to create a note is quite easy, to finalize and to add information into it. Some of the challenges too are with the master name index, what that looks like, so that when you're adding people into this product, whether or not it is auto populates elements, features down the road. We've been told will include scanning a driver's license to pre-populate an ID. What we like about it too is that there's a lot of control that we have over those configurable fields and forms. And of course, something that is very beneficial is just the search fields. When you're rolling out a product like this, that everyone has a digital device in their hands, and we have in our service, all of our officers have work issued phones. We're finding that we are being extremely mindful of that tree of who can see whose notes. And there is a lot of benefit to this product. And there's also a lot of thought, I think, that has to be put into whether you roll it with an Axon product or SmartSpot or one of the other ones, about searchability of notes. There's positive things in the sense of we had a situation where we had officers that were dispatched to an incident, and they were still at the incident, which required a warrant or judicial authorization to enter. They were taking notes while they were containing a certain scene, and the detective that was writing the warrant or seeking the judicial authorization was able to extract their notes before they were finalized to put into his ITO to get that in real time. Whereas before, you would have to wait for those officers to finish their notes, come back to the station, scan them in, create a PDF, send them to the officer. And if the officer writing the judicial authorization could actually read them, then put that into the warrant. Whereas this way, it was incredibly efficient for us to be able to flip this over really fast. So that's a good example of how these are starting to be used. And I don't think all the use case scenarios have actually played out with this product yet. When it comes to being mindful of things, we found that when you're talking about constables and sergeants and staff sergeants and possibly inspectors using this, who can see whose notes? And then there's questions about whether or not there should be some ability to redact certain things. So the first thing that comes to mind is any kind of a disciplinary thing, or if it makes sense to me that a sergeant should be able to see the constable's notes, but not the other way around. So these are kind of these theoretical things that we're fleshing out before we roll it out to the frontline staff here. And of course, it's nice because the notes are not moving from paper where they had to be bought, as in a notebook bought, notebook stored, notebook used, notebook stored again in our property area. This is all paperless, right? So it's secure. It's in the cloud. It's not, if one if we lose one of our phones or it goes into the lake, it's real time backed up, so we don't have to worry about losing some critical pieces of evidence. And of course, there's like anything to do with software related things in law enforcement, there's a robust audit log to see who saw it, who has access to it, and all those things. When it comes to sharing, we do a single share to our end product team, which would be our Crown Attorney's Office here. They really like this product, and I think that was important for us to bring them on board early in the phases of developing it, to get their input and insight into what they see. They love it, simply for the fact that they can read notes. Now they don't have to decipher hieroglyphics or officers' really bad handwriting. I can speak for myself; it's terrible sometimes, right? So, and of course, that just has benefits just on its own. And I think again, a lot of these things are things that there are benefits, and I'm sure there'll be drawbacks too that we just haven't seen yet, because as officers get this into their hands and they're using it in the field and we're seeing that product come back, we are finding out things that are great. We're finding out things that we need to tweak this or that. So accessibility too. I know I'm doing a lot of talking, but the notes application app that we use right now is on our phones, but it can be used on any device. So our detectives in our crime unit typically use it on their desktop of their computer, or patrol officers will use it on their phones in the cars. Patrol officers, when they come back to our report room, use it on the desktop as well to fill in any kind of notes. And the nice thing about this type of note too, just going back to that deliverable side, is I can remember, you'd write down all these different incidents throughout the day that you dealt with, and then the next day you do a bunch of follow-ups for the same incidents you did the day before. When you're disclosing that or you're searching them for information on paper, it's very difficult unless you use tabs to find out where specific incidents are. Whereas with notes, with incident numbers and CAD integration, that is coming soon. Just like body cam footage is CAD flagged. It'll really make this process a lot easier to search through that work product that you did for follow-ups, for disclosure, for all those things. So, and again, you can access these notes at any time. How it works is a note is in draft format until it is finalized. Once it's finalized, it's locked. You can't make changes to it. If you have things to add, you just add a supplementary note to that particular one that's attached to an incident. Kyle, did I cover everything off, you think, or do you need?
Yeah, for the most part, just to touch on a couple for disclosure. Once the note's finalized, and once we have the CAD integration, it'll automatically pop up with the incident number, and then it's automatically disclosed to our court office. So it takes away from the officer scanning and photocopying and sending to the courts and attaching to incidents. It also takes away, depending on what service you're from, whether officers are doing statements or officer will states, getting the Crown on board early. They like the product that was rolled out, and we no longer need officers doing statements. There's standalone PDF form of the notes. Once it's disclosed, that takes the place of the officer's statement, which is nice. We're also currently testing that Axon's looking to roll out a dedicated app for the notes, which is going to clear up any of our connection issues. We have a few spots in the city where there's cell phone connectivity issues, which has caused a bit of a delay in the notes. And the app's going to provide us an offline function that once the note's made, then it's still there, and it'll just upload once it gets an internet connection at that point. So it'll clear up any connection or loss of notes issues that we've experienced a little bit. But so far the app's working seamlessly once we were able to push it to our phones.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much for sharing your expertise and so far what you've been doing with this. I have a few questions, and the first one would be, what kinds of testing did you guys do before you decided which platform was going to be best for you guys? And did you get feedback from your teams? Did you decide as a unit? Just wondering how that whole process was.
Well, it was, we did look at other products in the market right now. What happened was we've had a pretty close relationship with Axon, developing different products for a couple of years now. And they came to us saying, we are putting together an eNotes team, and we're looking for partners. And that's really where we said, you know what, we've looked at a couple of things. We have some ideas. Let's make our own. And that's where they've worked with us for the last 12 months to build and flesh this out. So.
Perfect. And an interesting question just popped up, actually, two of them, but I'll start with this one. It says, is there a wellness component for the officers? Does this have the capability to flag certain words written in the officer's notes to check on the officer if they are dealing with a bad call?
That's a really interesting feature. And no, not that I know of. I don't think there's anything that analyzes and contextualizes what the officer is doing, almost like what you would think an AI type thing or draft one. But that's a really cool idea, actually.
Yeah, that's very interesting. That would be a great feature to add. I would bring that back to the The vendor for sure. Another question here. It says, what pre-learning or pre-launch training do you expect officers will need, if any, in order to proficiently use digital note-taking? Similarly, do you anticipate certain groups of officers needing more pre-training or support than others? For example, generational differences in adoption and proficiency.
Well,
Sure. Yes. I don't know, Kyle, if you want to answer, but
yeah. So in terms of training, the training package itself is pretty simple, just because the actual platform is very simple to use. It's the dictation part at the top, note our names, addresses, everything's fillable there. The platform itself is very simple. In our initial test group, we took a good cross section of officers, some that are very handy tech wise, and some that were resistant at the start. So far, uniformly, everybody's on board and is able to use it simply. And we were able to expand the pilot to include all of our criminal investigators. Just the simple fact that most of the notes are done at their desk in the office, and just having it up on the screen there to do the notes, found it beneficial early on and included them in the group, and the training was very minimal and they were able to pick it up no problem.
Wonderful. And will this be an all or nothing implementation, or can folks still use pen and paper in combination with the digital notes?
so I
We're
would
looking to go all or nothing.
Yeah, we're all or nothing. And to dovetail kind of off of what Kyle is saying too, how we put this together was developing the product. We have a really good cross section, like you said, of officers that are using the product. Those officers are a kind of they represent every platoon that we have here. So when the plan is that they are going to be the trainers. When they go back to their platoons, we're going to roll out Axon's training, of course, and have some sit down training, get it in your hands and use it. But they're going to be our boots on the ground with those patrol officers at, in those report rooms, or trying to figure things out and get used to this new way of doing business. They're going to be our representatives. So if you're thinking of rolling out technology, especially like this, that's so impactful, be mindful and thoughtful, is my opinion, of who you have representing you when they go back to the road. So as Kyle was saying, we have a cross section, and we really do. We have some officers that are all they want to do is use digital notes, and we had some officers that started and they they're like me, they kind of have fat thumbs, right? They're just not into this thing. But as this has progressed, they've gotten more and more comfortable with it, and it just all of a sudden becomes second nature. So there is some time that has to be put in place for this training, but also integration into the workflow for sure.
And just to touch on the all or nothing again, we started the pilot in April, and we've kind of committed to really taking our time with the pilot group to sort out all the bugs before we push it out, just to ensure that everybody's on board with it. Some of the connectivity issues that we've been working through, and that making sure that all of that's sorted out before we push it out, and it'll just increase the buying. So far, it's been very positively reviewed by our pilot group, and everybody's very excited to roll it out. But we just want to make sure everything's exactly where we want it before we roll it out to everybody, so we can easily sell the all or nothing approach.
Of course. And now, during this pilot in the last few months, did the quality of the content of the notes change with the digital tool? Like, was it because it's easier to dictate and type than it is to like write with a pen? Do you get more details? To something along those lines.
I would say, and Kyle can certainly speak to it, that the quality of the notes that officers are producing using e-notes is exceptionally better. Both in the person captured details, in what we're capturing with individuals that we're dealing with in those fields, but also the free text fields. I don't. I can't keep up to myself when I'm writing and jotting down with a pen, but I can use voice dictation and pretty much keep up with my thoughts, observations, details, and different significant points to put into a note. So it has increased the quantity and quality of notes of the officers that we've seen. And I know that Kyle can speak to some that have gone to court, like been disclosed already as well, right? So the Crowns seem to be the Crowns like it. That's our main customer, right? So
yeah, they've been very positive with what the notes look like, and it seems like in a lot of the notes that I've read over and looked, it's almost as the officers are dictating their report as their note, and they can essentially use that narrative as their report. So just the extra detail, the dictation function is very accurate. So essentially they're writing the report in their notes now, as opposed to just quick shorthand just to get it done.
Fantastic. And you guys mentioned that this is hosted on the cloud. Now, there's a question that asks, will there be an on-premises option for agencies that would want that?
That's a question well above my pay and skill level. I do not know. I know that everything that we do with Axon is hosted, is pushed up, right? So I don't know the answer to that, though.
That is okay. Next question is there an internal IT component needed, or is Axon managing the IT support for you?
Well, right now we're still in the development cycle of this project, although we're in the end phase of it. This support from our IT has been involved heavily in our implementation and in this group to put this together. So there is a component that IT needs to help manage, primarily with the hierarchy and access, that tree that you see of who can see what and who can do what within the product itself. As far as support goes afterwards, I would think for us, it would flow through our IT to Axon. So.
All right. And do you anticipate AI tools having an impact on note taking so there is less required of the officers?
I anticipate AI having an impact on pretty much everything we're doing in policing, and notwithstanding notes. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of application that could have to notes, because notes are intended to be your recollections and your detail in your words, right? It's not as you're writing your notes, you're not writing a report. So it'd be interesting to see the application of that. But like anything, and you see in every environment now, AI is creeping in and making efficiencies and different things. It'll be interesting to see how that's applied in these circumstances, for sure.
Of course, it kind of brings us back to our first panel. Unfortunately, that is the time that we have for this today. So I just wanted to say thank you to Jeremy and Kyle for joining us, for sharing your experiences, and hopefully this has helped out our attendees as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Brittany.
Thanks, everyone.